Ukraine, obviously, and counter the growing aggression from Russia. Poland, and not least you personally, Donald, deserves a lot of credit for the leadership you have provided in this regard. We are many colleagues around the table in council meetings that really welcome that you're back. The transatlantic link remains indispensable for Europe. It is our firm belief that as much as Europe needs a strong US, the US also needs a strong Europe. But that conviction cannot be used as an excuse to shy away from the responsibilities we have for our own security. In our discussions today, we have discussed the steps Europe now must take and how Sweden and Poland can contribute to this shared effort. Our history and our geography give us a very special responsibility. A major milestone from today's meeting is the decision to increase the cooperation between our two countries. And by signing this strategic partnership, Sweden and Poland reaffirm our commitment to shared values, international law, human rights, with particular focus on the Baltic Sea region. We have agreed to work together to make our societies more competitive, more resilient, and more secure. These concrete steps include a few things. One, enhanced strategic defense partnership. We have agreed to launch work towards an enhanced and even deeper, broader and more effective bilateral defense partnership with a focus on comprehensive security in the Baltic Sea region. Second, sustained support for Ukraine. Our support for Ukraine is ironclad. We fully support Ukraine's right to choose its own security arrangements and pursue its Euro-Atlantic integration. Together we work to ensure that Ukraine is provided with the necessary support, including military equipment and funding, so that Ukraine can recover and build back better. And we are grateful to Poland, which plays a pivotal role as the main logistics hub for military and humanitarian support to Ukraine. We in Sweden have had enormous use of that possibility. And together we will also explore opportunities for joint investments and cooperation in Ukraine's own defense industry and production. And third, Polish-Swedish Business Summit. We will organize this event to foster even closer collaboration between our business communities, and we had lunch today with representatives from Swedish and Polish business community that really underline the great possibilities both sides or both countries see ahead of us. We have also and finally agreed to meet again together with the relevant ministers to follow up on our strategic discussions of today and on the implementation of a partnership. We are under no illusion about the challenges we have ahead. Much work remains to be done to secure Europe's future in security and prosperity, and security and prosperity are actually interlinked. But both Sweden and Poland have the determination to do what it takes. Thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. You allowed me.
Once again, I would like to thank the host of these two very important meetings from the Polish perspective. I want to thank you very much for yesterday's deep and very honest and open discussion with our colleagues from this new format of cooperation, Nordic countries and Baltic countries and Poland. With your initiative, we all felt that the countries which have joint responsibility for the security of this part of Europe and for security of the eastern part eastern border of the European Union and NATO, which take joint responsibility for the security of the Baltic Sea, that all these countries speak in one voice. It's your huge contribution, the contribution of the Swedish government, and your personal contribution. We make this group not for good intentions, but now more so often, which has been established to act together. It's of key importance, the European Union, the fact that today we have a group of countries. Well, we came from different parts. We used to have different positions maybe, but today we meet with our Swedish friends, and yesterday in this wider group, with the full conviction that in the issues of security and economic independence of Europe and real European independence, we speak in the same voice. And it's a new experience, I have to confess. I can say it because I've participated in so many European undertakings in different roles. And for the very first time, I can see such a solid, in solidarity, but solid bloc of countries, which even in the most difficult issues, such like war in Ukraine, the aggression of Russia in Ukraine, and we think in exactly the same way. So thank you so much for the interest that you have expressed, just like other leaders, for this idea of strengthening the security on the Baltic Sea. We'll keep on discussing on a possible form of the Baltic Sea policing. Well, we still have ahead of us the discussion about details, but already today I want to thank you for understanding the need to control the situation on the Baltic Sea and provide security. I don't need really, here in Sweden, I don't really need to convince anybody what is the role and how important the role of the Baltic Sea in the system of security of the entire Europe and the Western world. I want to thank you very much for organizing this meeting with Swedish and Polish businesses, economies, managers, businessmen. Well, as you can guess, not for the first time during this visit, I felt like at home when I learned that the Swedish party, that the Swedish business will be represented by Sebastian Siemiątkowski, a typical Swedish name. So it showed how close we are and how well we can understand one another without words. But it's not only this great mood that we had during the discussions, but we are so happy today, both of us, because we have this close cooperation in business, but in energy. We had leading actors, electro-energy, defense industry, or financing, innovation. Well, this is all it is joint for us. And I'm so happy that Sweden and you personally, that you understand that it's a great opportunity to all of us, having in mind this great reputation of Poland on the international scene and really good results in economy, specifically if we compare ourselves to the neighbors. Well, Poland has become a very interesting place for investments. I don't need to say anything more about Ukraine. Here we speak in the same voice. We act to support Ukraine, and we reconfirm what we have been talking about. It's Ukraine that is to decide about the future possible discussions on the ceasefire. Nothing about Ukraine. Without Ukraine, we'll jointly support Ukraine in its fight against the Russian aggression and in the future in the rebuilding of the country. It's a very solid bloc, Sweden, Poland, but also the participants of yesterday's meeting. So I believe this will be a very important signal to Europe that we are just like one fist in all of it. So there is no exaggeration in it. Now, after this meeting, I've been more optimistic. However, today in Europe, we don't hear optimistic signals too often. But after this meeting, we can be more optimistic. And again, thank you so much for understanding this idea so that the Polish presidency will be our joint responsibility in a way. After Poland, Denmark will take over. We will cooperate within all the bloc with Sweden, first of all. So the next year, two presidencies, the Polish one and the Danish one, with the active participation of Sweden with other partners, I hope that we will set the tone to change the tone of Europe, to talk about the regulation, about support to business, about the energy prices. Energy prices in Sweden are one of the lowest, but in Poland, one of the highest in Europe, out of different reasons. So thank you very much for understanding the need for the energy union in Europe. So joint actions that the European Union as the whole, and Sweden and Poland, that will become competitive also in prices of energy. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for opening the field for cooperation. So your knowledge, your experience will be of much use to us. Thank you once again. Poland and Sweden, it's a role model as for friendship and loyalty. Once again, thank you so much.
Right, we go to questions. The first question to Magnus Vandenberg, TV4.
Yeah, first of all, I wonder, while you are cooperating regarding defense and security and also long-term support for Ukraine in other formats, so to say, for example, within NATO, what will this partnership agreement make for a difference? And also, Prime Minister Kristersson, regarding the formal request you've sent to China, what do you expect from China, concrete actions and so on? Also, while what you said on Monday, so far, I don't think this ship has moved towards Swedish waters. Thank you.
Would you like to start? Okay. If you don't mind, I think I will answer your second question in Swedish, and I can repeat it in English. Det vi har gjort nu är alltså att vi har utöver en mer allmänt hållen önskan att ha en kontakt i det specifika frågan och att fartyget går till svenska vatten, så har vi nu också uttryckt en formell begäran om detta. Med anledning av de undersökningar som har gjorts i Sverige och som också rättsvårdande instanser har genomfört. Och på den grunden har vi nu formellt skickat en sån begäran. Det förändrar ingenting i sak, men det uttrycker som sagt vår rätt bestämda vilja att kunna genomföra en sådan, kan vi säga, granskning av fartyget så vi verkligen kan ta reda på vad som har hänt. Och vi förväntar oss naturligtvis att Kina i det här fallet väljer att samarbeta på precis det som vi har begärt. Här ligger fortfarande ingen anklagelse om någonting mot någon, men det ligger verkligen en mycket tydlig önskan från svensk sida att komma till rätta med exakt vad som har hänt. I just said in Swedish that we, of course, with this request, obviously we think it's extremely important to find out exactly what had happened, and of course that we expect also China to comply with the request we have sent to China. Please.
Well, talking about this incident, it was not the very first one, obviously, on the Baltic Sea. So it did not happen for the first time, as you know. And these types of incidents, they annoy all of us, obviously. And those who are interested in safe navigation and safety as such on the Baltic Sea and in countries in the Baltic Sea region. Well, these incidents did not really involve Poland in the recent months or years, but we express full solidarity and full support in any situation that would require it. And we believe in reliability, and that we believe that this investigation will be fair, and Sweden's actions are in the best interest of all of us, obviously. It's important to each one of us. We want it to be investigated and clarified out of obvious reasons. We don't really need to convince anybody. There was no doubt whatsoever, because I want to stop any kind of speculations. Our cooperation on defense is NATO countries' cooperation. Poland has a longer tradition of membership in NATO, but to Poland it was of key importance. The day when when Sweden and Finland joined NATO, it was like festival in Poland. We were so overjoyed. So NATO, we believe that NATO is not only a piece of paper with guarantees for security of Poland, but once Sweden joined NATO, we understood that the safety dimension can be very material. Our cooperation on the Baltic Sea, cooperation and the defense industry, joint purchases in armament, all of it, this is the foundation. It's a cement for the security system in Europe. And any possible actions in the Baltic Sea would have to be part of NATO activities. It's like a policy, nothing new really. Or like yesterday, I received information from Norway, from the Prime Minister in Norway, that Norway takes some part of responsibility for safety of the hub in Rzeszów, in Jarząbka, the airport, and they will support it with their security systems, because this place is important to all of us. Like 90% of all support to Ukraine goes via the hub, via Poland and via the hub in Rzeszów. So as you may guess, all of it is within NATO, but NATO does not exclude some specific joint actions of some groups of countries. So there is no wonder that the safety of the Baltic Sea is sought most by countries like Sweden and Poland. But when Polish Prime Minister says it, believe us, NATO should be as strong as possible here. They should be in solidarity and unified. Thank you.
Radio set.
Chciałabym dopytać jeszcze.
I want to learn about more details about protection of the Baltic Sea. NATO, I understand this is the direction in which you will operate, or do you want to encourage the European Union to be included, to be involved in it under a group of countries which is now being set up, kind of? And my next question is about the threats of Putin's next threat, to use very special ballistic state-of-the-art Oryeshkin missiles. And will it make us having some extra ideas how to protect ourselves against it?
Ja bardzo poważnie traktuję kwestię bezpieczeństwa na Bałtyku i dlatego przyjmuję z satysfakcją to życzliwe zainteresowanie.
Which is why I'm very happy that, I was talking to countries and I saw interest from the Prime Minister of Sweden, but the press conference, it's not a place where we'll be discussing the details. We are all in agreement that our actions, including the Nordic-Baltic Polish group, that they should be more rapid, not only within security, than just routine actions. The time goes really quickly. History kind of got back, galloping to this part of the world. So we need to be quick and decisive in our responses and actions. And this is what we decided together. This is what we agreed that we will be working on it. We will be presenting this draft in the NATO summit in The Hague. The European Union, as you know, it is not about defense. So this mission is not to be implemented under the European Union. But I have no doubt that the entire European Union, including Greece and Portugal, should be interested in safety and security on the Baltic Sea. So I don't think this project will be controversial. Well, talking about Putin's threats, well, the tactics is pretty obvious. And we were talking about it yesterday and today with the Prime Minister. If NATO, the European Union, including Poland and Sweden, if we get frightened by Putin's threats, he will win. And the fact that he uses in his rhetorics hard threats. It's an evidence of his weakness, not strength. We need to stand still. We need to know how to play the game of Kremlin, because it's really apparent. The one who will break will lose. If Ukraine were to get frightened by the threats, we would be having Russian army on the border of Finland, Norway, or Poland. So one example of Ukraine to that extent should be very significant to all of us. So those who are afraid will lose it. So we should be sending very clear signals as response of our countries without any doubt. We will not get frightened. We will not be afraid. We will support Ukraine as long as it will need us, as long as it will want to have our support in this confrontation.
Mr. Tusk.
Panie Tusk, Polska wkrótce będzie miała prezydencję w Unii Europejskiej. Pan jest tu od 2.
Support for Ukraine here in this region and in this part of Europe is very strong. That is not the case in all of the parts of Europe. Does that worry you? And what would you do in that case to convince other countries that are not that convinced? Sorry. And do you think there might be a risk that our part of Europe might have to take a bigger responsibility when it comes to supporting Ukraine?
I can't complain on support for Ukraine from the European countries. You are right, however, because it is different in its intensivity. But we need to understand that countries like the countries which traditionally are perceived to be less pro-Ukrainian, like Hungary or Slovakia, as when we talk about humanitarian aid to Ukraine, but also in military equipment, they also take part in our joint activities. Well, of course, I would want all of us to have as clear position as Sweden, Poland, or our friends from this region. But let's not complain. When we look at what's happening in the European countries, which used to be traditionally pro-Russian, then I have to tell you that the European Union as a whole has passed the test of solidarity with Ukraine. Really, please do not complain. Please remember how many the biggest countries in Europe, until only recently, wanted to cooperate and preferred to cooperate with Russia in almost every field. So that change is really clear, obvious. Okay, we can be happy to be satisfied because Sweden and Poland, we are leaders in this trend. But we are happy that others follow us. And the Polish presidency will be used definitely to strengthen this trend. I do not have any special fears that we will lose the European solidarity somewhere on our way. Should the European support need to be increased if Americans withdraw some of it, if the need is there? Well, Europe will need to answer this question, but I have no doubt. And Ulf doesn't have any doubt. Yes, Europe has to take responsibility for its own security. We repeated it over and over again. I don't want to bore you, but it has to reach every European citizen. Support to Ukraine is in our interest. I'm defending the safe security of Poland. Ulf defends security of Sweden. It's our egocentric interest. Safe Ukraine, secure Ukraine is one of the guarantee of our security. So we are doing it for ourselves. And I want it to be well understood in Europe, across Europe, that it's like that, even if the help will need to be increased.
TVP.
Mr. Prime Minister, you were talking about a Nordic-Baltic Polish group. This year, Poland is a special guest during this meeting, but having in mind the geopolitical situation and the threats that we've been talking about all the time, is there any possibility for Poland to be a permanent member of the Baltic Nordic 8, maybe 9? I don't know, Ulf. I feel like a permanent member of the group. It's not the first meeting of this type. Those who accompany us in Brussels, they know that each European Council begins with the meeting of this group, including Poland. So it's not really that the Prime Minister of Sweden wants to be nice to me or I want to be nice to the Prime Minister of Sweden. We know perfectly well that it's in our joint interest, common interest, and having in mind our experience, I could keep on talking about it. I'm not interested in participating in formats which will give nothing. There are millions of formats of cooperation in Europe on million different subjects, but my experience whispers to me that this format is useful, that it can be useful. And each hour meeting is yet another step towards more secure Europe. Maybe I'm going ahead of facts, but I feel like a member of this family, and I will not wait for any invitation. I'll just walk into the meeting.
Attitude, I would say. May I add to that? Sometimes we think that we live increasingly in a virtual world, digital virtual, without any kind of physical boundaries. Geography still matters, and we know that now more than for many, many years. So geography is important, the Baltic Sea is important, our common responsibility for our part of the world is extremely important. So the answer is yes.
Next question goes to Kita Kohonen, MTV. Here.
Hey. Hello to both of you. My question goes to Prime Minister Tusk, and if possible in English, please. In Finland, there is a discussion about leaving the Ottawa Treaty and bringing back landmines to the eastern border. And this talk was started by people like our Chief of Defense Forces, the past and current Minister of Defense, and several former ambassadors. So what are your thoughts of this, and what kind of discussion is currently happening in Poland about landmines?
We didn't even start any discussion on this, but I can understand why it is so important for our friends in Finland, because it's as you know, we are together. I mean, Finland, the Baltic states, and Poland, when it comes to our efforts how to protect our eastern border with Russia. As you know, what we need today is to find the most effective methods how to protect our border against this possible aggression. And this is why I'm not sure that we will start a discussion, the debate in Poland now, but I fully understand fears and motivations which accompany the politicians in countries like Finland. I know how difficult it is. It's, we know why Ottawa Treaty was so important for almost all the world, and we understand all this also humanitarian aspects of this treaty. But today it must be clear, security, this is the absolutely the highest priority for all of us. And this is why I don't want to comment in details, because I am not a part of this debate, but again, I understand all the motivations.
Last question in group goes to David from Polsat.
Good afternoon. Something about national politics in the context of information on Marshal Szymon Hołownia, his studies at Collegium Humanum. The Marshal, the speaker, says, or he suggests, that that secret services could have been involved, that someone really wanted very much for this information to be made public, and that it could have impact on any crisis, weakening of relations in the coalition. I'm asking in the context of approaching election. Many people say that the campaign may be really dirty. Well, I heard explanation of the speaker. I believe they are sufficient. He was very detailed in his explanation. I have full trust to what he has said and what he is doing. If anybody who is a part of the public administration, if anybody would dare to use their tools and competences and powers to have impact on the presidential campaign, will be expelled by me the next day. Please feel confident. I understand the emotions. Well, presidential campaign, we know of it. Everybody expects unpleasant situations, and this campaign may be really brutal, but I will take care of it. Believe me, our campaign will not be brutal, and it will not be going against Mr. Hołownia. I keep my fingers crossed for him. We have our candidate, but I can't imagine that anybody representing the government or political power would even dare to think that they will use it against whoever of the candidates. Whoever of the candidates. I'm convinced that the confidence within the coalition will not suffer.
I know. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.